I'm Spiro Cheriogotis, and you're now tuned in to Alabama Hip Hop Radio.
WAHHR, Alabama Hip Hop Radio, online worldwide, with the dopest radio station on the planet. A new way to listen.
Hi, I am Ty Burden, and this is City Unplugged, where your voice is amplified. We talk about everything that's going on in the city, and the most important thing that is going on is the election on August 26th. And we have seen the man all over town, all over your social media, all over your TV, Spiro Cheriogotis. And see, I got it right.
You nailed it.
Spiro Cheriogotis, and it is so lovely to meet you.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's so nice to have you here, and thank you for talking to us, because we've been wanting to get your point of view.
Thank you.
And so the first thing that I want to ask you is why you're here and why you're running.
Why am I here? Why am I running? That's a big story there, Ty.
Listen, we want to know about you.
You know, man, I have to go way back to really think about it. But, you know, my desire to seek the law started when I was very young. You know this story?
I don't know this story. I don't know this story.
You know, when I was very young, my family had a family business. You know, it was a big business. And, you know, my dad was in charge of hiring and firing people. And he had an employee who just kind of went off the rails and really started harassing our family, harassing my father. You don't know this story?
I don't know this story.
Oh, man. Stalking our family, leaving death threats about me and my sister. And I was 4 at the time, and one day we were driving home from Dad's work, and we got ran off the road by this man.
Okay.
You know, 19, 20-year-old guy, just not in his right state of mind. And Dad followed him to tell his new employer who he had hired and how he had just almost killed a man and his child, you know, driving their vehicle. And so when they pulled up to what looked like a business, Dad got out unarmed, went up to talk to him, and he said, all I saw was a flash of a blade. This guy tried to stab him in the head, and thankfully my dad caught the blade with his arm and ran back to his truck where I was sitting. And as the guy ran at him with the knife, he defended himself, grabbed his firearm, defended himself. But you know, back then you didn't have that right in Alabama. You had what was called the duty to retreat. You had to run. And you know, when someone almost kills you, there's not a whole lot of thinking happening.
No, we haven't changed that law. And
so thankfully we changed that law back in 2006, but it was too late for our family. You know, Dad was prosecuted for murder through 3 trials, you know, hung jury, 1 reversed on appeal, bankrupted our family, you know, just paying lawyers. The business partners in the business actually tried to force us out of the business because of all the unwanted attention, and they were successful in that, but thankfully they had to pay us our part of it. You know, Dad and my grandfather really built that business. These were silent partners, and because they were men of their word and had built relationships, they were able to rebuild the business and really push the other folks out of town. But my dad was tried 3 times, and because he had not run away, because he stood his ground, he was convicted of manslaughter and served, you know, first time I ever saw it snow was in the Elmore County Prison, visiting my dad. So from like 6 to 9, I spent every weekend visiting my dad, you know, in the penitentiary. And, you know, that caused a lot of grief for our family, and it was hard. You know, he felt wronged. He felt like he had done what anybody else would do. You know, I don't believe I'd be sitting here today if he hadn't. You know, this man was, you know, young white guy, carried ninja stars and nunchucks, and he was just not normal, you know, and had done this to other employers before. And, you know, and I look back on that, Lord knows what that event, I think everything happens for a reason.
So is that why you became an attorney?
Looking back now, like having the benefit of hindsight, no doubt, most definitely. I will tell you, because we struggled so much growing up, and I did have good grades, I did well in school, I was going to be a doctor just because I knew doctors didn't have to worry about money. And I grew up worrying about money. I grew up, wishing there was a little more food in the pantry. My mom and dad did a great job, and battled through things I can't even imagine battling through, and took care of us kids. They did a wonderful job, and they were wonderful parents. But, I wanted to have real polo shirts. I wanted things that like kids had, other kids had. And so I'll tell you, growing up, that was my motivation, was to get money, which is not the appropriate motivation,
Listen, coming from a background where you don't have it, it may not seem like it's an appropriate thing, but that is where the constituency here, that's what we understand.
I will say, growing up, I realized that, that can't be the prime motivator. I'll say it that way. I still want to provide for my family, and I still want to live comfortably and give my children the things they want to have without spoiling them. But anyway, so I was on that path. I was headed towards med school, and when you can just tell that you're not on the right track, like I was just, everything was working out. I'd done really well on the MCAT entrance exam. I was interviewing actually here at South Alabama, and I just knew that I wasn't on the right path. It was like my heart was sick. And I prayed very fervently, like, Lord, everything on the outside is working out perfectly to plan, and nothing on the inside is working. And I know I'm not doing what you would have me do. I need you to guide me. I need you to tell me what to do. I'm lost. And I'm telling you, Ty, I heard one word, and it was law. And it was like my life, the next probably 8 years of my life flashed before my eyes before I could open my eyes and see who had just said that. Of course, nobody was there. And I knew who had said that one word, law. But, looking back, I feel like I was always fighting against that because my motivations weren't right. And then, man, studied for that LSAT and got into Alabama so quickly I thought it was a joke. I thought the guy was pulling my leg, truly. Went to Alabama. My political career that I never aspired for kind of started there. I had some friends call me into a meeting one day and they said, oh, hey, one of our senators has left school. You're the new senator. Sit down, have fun,
Okay.
And so that was kind of the beginning of my political career, and started on the Student Bar Association and was elected without opposition, the best way to run for vice president of the Student Bar Association. And looking back, I would have never thought that politics were in my future.
So do you think that what happened with your father affected the type of judge that you were?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Wanting to protect people is certainly paramount. I want to make sure that our people, our city, our children, our families are protected. But, everybody that comes before me as a district judge is presumed innocent. And, the fact that could be my dad standing right there, accused of something they didn't do. I know very little facts at the beginning of a case, in fact, none. I just know a charge and a person. And so you got to make sure you're setting bonds appropriately to make sure the community is protected, but as you hear evidence, that presumption has to remain. Yes. Until somebody's convicted before a jury beyond a reasonable doubt, they're innocent until they're proven guilty. So that's something I thought about all the time. Even if people are guilty, they should still be treated with respect. They should still be treated with love, because people make mistakes. People do things they shouldn't do, and people can change. Doesn't mean you can ignore that duty to protect the city, the people, the county, but you can still treat people with respect.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I did not know your story, and that makes a difference to me to know what kind of a judge that you are and a person that you are. So, of course, I have to be representative of the young black intellectuals and the also the ratchets, because I represent those as well. And so I have some good questions that I think we're going to try to get through. And we have a limited amount of time this morning, but let's see what we can get through, okay? Economic inclusion with action and not promises. For too long, our community has been left out of Mobile's economic progress. For instance, I looked up what the leadership board of the Chamber of Commerce looks like. And the Chamber of Commerce does not have a diverse looking board, right? And so I want to know if there's any specific steps that you'll take to bring jobs, job training, and support for black-owned businesses and to underserved inner-city neighborhoods. And do you have any things that are efforts that are backed up by deadlines, public reporting, and any type of real accountability?
Yeah, we certainly have to have real accountability in these efforts, but when I look at the economic progress as far as bringing in industry, jobs being created, I certainly want that to be felt by everybody in the city. And I hear from people that feel disconnected from a lot of the progress we've had, and I can't tell them they're wrong. I can't say that that's not fair. So I do look at, workforce development, dual enrollment programs are really close to my heart because, we lose a lot of kids after high school. If they don't have that clear path to college or clear path to more school, a lot of them don't even have a ride to go work a job, and they just kind of get lost for a little while.
Yes.
Until they can find themselves. So, two ways I think we can really affect that are really amping up our dual enrollment programs. I say this a lot. Not everybody can afford college. People used to work their way through college.
Right.
You can't do that, flipping burgers at Dairy Queen anymore.
That's right.
The economics of that do not work. But one thing you can do is if you get your electrician certificate, welding certificate, HVAC certificate, if you're working a part-time job doing those things, you can pay your way through school.
That's
and
right.
So I want more kids to see that kind of skill set as just something they can bank on, something they can always fall back on, something they can build from, to continue their education if they want. So I want to see more kids entering dual enrollment programs, seeking out those certificates, those skills. And I also really want to reinvigorate our public transportation system. 31% of the people who aren't working in our city say it's because they lack reliable transportation. The people in court who can't get to court, it's more like 70% lack reliable transportation. That doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. If you can't move around and get to where you're going easily, it's easy to be left behind. And so if we can create a truly reliable, convenient public transportation system, I can get more people to work, I can get more people, to and from after school programs, to and from technical training, to and from college. I think that's something that could really revolutionize our city. And to me, having that reliable transportation is it's a great equalizing force.
That takes me into my next question. It's about youth investment and community infrastructure. Our children don't have enough safe spaces, quality schools, or after-school programs. We watch them slip through the cracks every day. What is your concrete plan to invest in youth development, rebuild recreational and educational infrastructure in inner city areas, and give our kids a real shot at success? Also, how do you feel about a city school system like how Saraland is done?
Yeah, I think education is one of the main reasons why we lose out on people moving to Mobile, and instead they're moving other places. At least the perception of our school system. Truth is we lag behind Baldwin County school system by a couple of points.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a vast difference, but it is a difference. And when I look at our schools where kids are 2 and 3 grade levels behind, that are struggling, a lot of those students never receive any kind of preschool. Kindergarten's not even mandatory in our state.
That's right.
And so we have kids starting school at 6 and 7 years old without having any kind of formal training. And, having raised kids, having read as many studies as I can, kids' brains are really ready to soak up knowledge, specifically language and language skills, from 3 to 4.
Right.
And we're missing out on kids completely in that basket. Going on to 5 and 6, if you're not having any kind of structured study and you're just kind of out, in the world, all your learning's coming from Sesame Street, maybe. I think that's why kids feel left behind right when they start school, and I think the city can invest in creating programs for preschool, but also making sure that existing programs qualify to receive state funding throughout the Alabama first class pre-K. We have a lot of money out there that, according to the map I see online, we have about 25 to 30 private institutions that receive that funding in Mobile. 100% of them are west of I-65.
That's right.
So that gap, I don't think is a coincidence. We need to really work to close that gap. I've looked at a city school system. I certainly want to support through after-school programming. That's my wife's on the board of Boys and Girls Club. They do amazing things. I support other groups that are focused on that after-school care. Kids need a safe place. Just to be able to learn, you need to be in a safe mental space to really soak up knowledge. So after-school programming, certainly summer programming. There's NYSP. I don't know if you were ever involved in that, but one thing National Youth Sports Program, and it was out at Bishop in different areas, but what it did was pull kids from different areas of town together, and they built relationships through this. Every summer they saw each other, which, to me, we need more unity in our city across the board, but certainly, even amongst young people who are growing up in the similar circumstances. The truth is we have groups that some would label them as gangs, and they see each other as ops, as people that are against them, when they have a whole lot more in common than they do that are different. And so summer programs like that, where you bring people together so that later on in life, like, oh no, we don't have a problem with them, that's James. I've known James my whole life.
Right.
So those are things I want to focus on. City school system, I've thought about it long and hard. I'll tell you, I think there's some financial difficulties that would bring that make it, to me, I don't see it as feasible, and I'm always willing to listen, and I'm always willing to see data and numbers that tell me it is economically feasible for our city. Anything I can do to improve educational outcomes is on the table. But if we were to create our own school system, we have to purchase a lot of property. We got a lot of valuable property out there. Some brand new football stadiums, schools that have had a lot of work. I would never do it unless I was sure that we could increase the level of education that the kids were receiving in our city. I haven't seen a plan that would make that work, and I've certainly sought them out, but my door's always open, and I always want to look at all the possibilities.
I haven't seen any of the statistical data of what it would look like in order to do it. I just know that the jewel of Mobile was Murphy High School, and at this point Murphy can't compete with Saraland, and none of our schools in the inner city could.
I do have a plan for that.
Oh, we're listening.
You know what a TIF district is?
I do not know.
So a TIF district, just throw out all the gobbledygook. It's essentially what it does is, if once you write down this TIF district, which can be focused on infrastructure, facade improvements, housing improvements, even repairing of existing houses, subsidizing the building of new housing so that it continues to be affordable.
Okay.
So you subsidize the building of homes and make sure that they remain affordable in their purchase price. You can build a TIF centered around all those things: school improvements, anything, public infrastructure improvements. And what it does is it freezes the amount of tax dollars, property tax dollars, that are going to the city, county, and state at today's level, whatever day you start it. And over the next 30 years, as property values rise, hopefully by you putting money back into the community, all the extra tax dollars go into a pot that go specifically back into that neighborhood, wherever you draw that TIF district. We've done it in downtown. DIP has a new one. They're starting to build up some funding. I think they have almost $200,000 in their fund. But all that money goes right back into the neighborhood, the community. And I have one that I've envisioned that would include some of most of Trinity Gardens, some of Crichton, on down to kind of that Imogene corridor, some of that area, and you can run over and grab Murphy in that too.
Oh.
And what I'd like to see is, Murphy was the jewel. It still is. If you look at it from the outside, it looks like a college campus.
It does.
It's beautiful. My wife's family all went to Murphy. I'd like to see that be a true, pre-college destination where students who were most definitely headed on to higher education spent their time. Truth is, Williamson's been kind of hurting for students. They've got a great facility. I'd love to see that school reinvigorated. And so, not everybody's on the path to college. Not everybody wants to take the hardest classes available,
Right.
and that's okay, College is not the only path to wealth and success anymore.
That's right.
You look at welders earning $100,000 straight out of school. My friend, I went to all the school, law school, got a biology and chemistry degree. My buddy who went straight into plumbing and welding, his balance sheet looks a lot better than mine.
I know some plumbers who make more money than everybody else, and
That's the truth.
and so we should send more kids in that direction.
For sure.
And that takes me into my next question. Protecting Black communities near the new airport. With the relocation of the airport to Brooklyn, communities like Maysville and other historically Black neighborhoods will be in the spotlight. We know that gentrification is coming, but how will you protect residents from displacement, prevent predatory land grabs, and ensure that the community is included in the growth and not pushed out of it?
And I think I don't want you to just say that gentrification is coming, okay? Property values will rise. There's no doubt about that. But to me, gentrification happens when the old folks from the neighborhood get pushed out. That is, but if you're an owner in Maysville, if you own your home in Maysville and down towards Brooklyn in that complex, you're going to benefit greatly from this rise in property values.
I just inherited a home off Dolphin Island Parkway. Tell me more.
There you go. Congratulations. And I'm sorry, condolences. So, what I think there are many ways. I love the idea of being able to subsidize affordable housing so that, we want to create more paths to ownership. The bulk of all Americans' wealth, the vast majority of Americans' wealth is tied up in the property they own, their home, essentially their home. What we have plans right now for affordable housing, specifically apartments that will be down in that area, down towards, what used to be RV and Birdville, down that way, that's actually going to replace more houses that were occupied when it was all shut down. We only had about 100 houses in those areas before the Mobile Housing Authority shut those places down.
Right.
We're going to add back about 215, I think is the number.
Okay.
But what we also need to do through our critical repair programs, through our grant system that we have at the city, I want to make sure that people that are owners there get to benefit from this by, I went to a lady's house the other day, a car ran into her house in like December.
Okay.
There's still a gaping hole in the brick wall of her house. They've been living in it. Her husband just passed away. He got pneumonia when the snows and the hard freeze came. I don't know that that's what took him, but we need to make sure that people aren't living in those conditions. People aren't living with open holes in their floor and open holes in their roof. And through the critical repair program, I love it specifically because it benefits homeowners. People that are already owning their home, they just can't afford to repair these issues. So let's build them up. Let's build their wealth up, and so that when the wealth of the community begins to rise, that they are a beneficiary and not someone who's displaced.
I do know that the critical repair program helps reduce blight because everyone is required to have a will when they do that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is a huge issue, not having clear title to your house because it has been inherited, is a huge issue for a lot of people, and so I'm thankful that that program requires that.
Very good. My next question is policing and targeting over low-level marijuana offenses. Just so you know, the young black people who we are speaking to today, this is one of the biggest issues and concerns that we have, okay? And police in our communities have been kicking in doors and conducting aggressive arrests over small amounts of marijuana. While it's technically illegal, we see this as targeted intimidation, especially when violent offenders like murderers and pedophiles don't face the same kind of force. What are your thoughts on this practice, and how would your administration ensure fairness in how laws are enforced across communities?
You know, as mayor, I think you can have some influence, especially on the police department and municipal court system. You know, I can't tell judges what they have to do. That's not the mayor's role, but I can have suggestions, you know, and I can have plans. But what I can tell you is from my history, what I did as a judge. You know, if you were brought to court and you were accused with nothing but the possession of a small amount of marijuana, maybe a piece of paraphernalia, you know, I refuse to do jail time on those cases. The most you would really get from me is a $250 fine in order to pay court costs. And if you wanted to work that out through community service, I was more than happy for you to do that. You know, we have to ask, yes, it's illegal, you know, but alcohol used to be illegal in our country. You know, it didn't really, I think the alcohol being illegal, it gave us the mob.
It did.
It gave us people who were willing to work outside the law and make some money and further themselves. I don't know that the prohibition of marijuana has had a really great effect on our country. I don't know who it's helping. And I think we have to ask, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth the risk to the SWAT team, to the homeowner, to be kicking in doors over something that's legal in half the states in our union? You know, is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And to me, I think we have to be very judicious how we use home raids. They are inherently dangerous to everybody involved. You know, the truth is there are some folks out there causing more chaos in our community through gun violence and other things that are tied directly to marijuana and other drugs. And, you know, the truth is the number of murders that happen in our city every year that are tied directly to low-level sale of marijuana. I'm talking an ounce of weed, half ounce of weed, a few $100s. I've had estimates from from homicide detectives that about half of the, and I can tell you as a prosecutor, half of the murders that I was involved in prosecuting were related directly to stick-ups, hold-ups over marijuana deals. And so, I haven't seen, all the numbers from Colorado and California, but I don't think there are many people there dying over $100 worth of marijuana.
No.
And I have to ask, why do we continue to allow that? But, you know, that's outside of the purview of the mayor. What I can do is make sure that we're judicious in the use of our police powers and that we're not creating unnecessary risk to our officers and our citizens. And hopefully I can bring some of my judicial policies into play too.
Representation in City Hall. Will your administration reflect the diversity of this city? And what is your commitment to appointing Black professionals to positions of power in city government, not just advisory roles, but decision-making positions with budget and authority?
Yeah, I don't think you can properly represent a diverse city without having a diverse administration. You know, in the end, I see things from my point of view. And for me to be the best leader possible, I've got to have a lot of other points of view in the room. I have to have a lot of other points of view that they'll miss things, they'll catch things I miss because I just don't think of it in that way, or I haven't experienced that. So 100% I am committed to having a diverse administration, that I am committed to empowering everyone who works with me, and I expect many of those people will be Black, white, and everywhere in between. I can tell you right now there are a lot of really good leaders in our city who are Black. There are good leaders who are women. There are good leaders from all different backgrounds who I seek to empower and make sure their voice is heard.
Very good. And my last question is, will you commit to regular town halls in our neighborhoods, not just in West Mobile, but establish a community accountability council made up of residents from Black and underserved communities to monitor progress and ensure our voices are not only heard but being acted on?
Are you planning the party or am I?
I will help to plan the party.
Okay.
We can plan that party together.
Cool. Okay. Then
Okay.
absolutely yes. You know, I've had a few roles where I was like chief party planner, and I kind of want to focus on some other things now, but I will be there. I will always be willing to listen. You know, the truth is, no matter how many issues we fix in Mobile, there will be new issues. You know, the needs of the community is ever evolving. The goal for a mayor should always be constant improvement. You want to see your city constantly improve, not just for me, not just for you, but for everybody who calls Mobile home. And in order to do that, you have to hear from the people.
Right.
You have to hear from the community. So, you know, I love talking to people. I love hearing, you know, it hurts sometimes to hear some of the issues they face because they are so difficult. But I want to be a part of that conversation in every way. So 100% I would commit to that. And I think we can really move this city forward. I truly do. I think we've seen some of that over the last decade plus, but that's what excites me. I mean, with our financial position, with our economic position, with some of the things we have just in the windshield, just in the future, I think we're going to revolutionize this city. I think we're going to build a city that lasts for generations to come and truly experience Mobile's golden age, but we got to do that together.
I think I am a Mobilian who loves Mobile, and I am excited to see it grow. I'm excited to see all the things that it can do, and I feel like if we don't come together from all the different parts of the city and have conversations, then we're going to be left out of the movement going forward. And I don't want us to be left out. And so I want to thank you for having this conversation,
My pleasure.
because I know that you have a forum, it seems like every single night.
It does seem like that.
But the community doesn't get to really hear your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that with us today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this long form conversation where we can just talk. Forums are good, but I like conversations.
Yes.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate your willingness to sit down with me, and it is time that we come together. We've all got the same goals, you know, personal success and success for our city.
That's right.
So let's work together.
Tell the people why they should vote for you.
You know, why should people vote for me? Because I love them. I love this city. I see how far we can take this city, and I need votes to do that. You know, I'm a man of faith. You know, I'm a man who is committed to telling you the truth, to doing the right thing no matter what the political cost is. I'm committed to loving my neighbor no matter who they are or where they come from, and I truly do. And I want to bring the success that Mobile has begun to feel to every community in this neighborhood, to your house, to your neighbor's house, to your family's house. I want to see the success of Mobile benefit everyone in the city, and I know we can do that. I know we can do that if we will continue to communicate with each other, to work together, and to continue to push this city forward. So on August 26th, you know, I'm all in on seeing Mobile reach its full potential, and I'm asking you to be all in with me. Thank you.
Well, this is Port City Unplugged, and this is Spiro Cheriogotis, candidate for mayor of Mobile. And so he is here for your consideration today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Port City Unplugged.